A pro-democracy activist from Hong Kong has decided not to comply with bail conditions and will be instead remaining here in Toronto. Agnes Chow moved to Canada to pursue her studies and was scheduled to return home to Hong Kong later this month. She becomes the latest activist to flee Hong Kong under Beijing's crackdown on dissidents. Greg Ross has more.
Agnes Chow first rose to fame in 2014 as a teenager who joined other young activists organizing pro-democracy protests in Hong Kong. In 2020, Beijing imposed a national security law, and Chow was among many who were arrested.
I was being arrested 4 years ago under the national security law in Hong Kong, and my passport was being confiscated for a really long time.
After being held in custody for 6 months, she was eventually released on bail. She says she applied to come and study in Canada for her master's degree with permission of Hong Kong police.
We went through a really long process, and I was being brought to the mainland China and being brought to some patriotic exhibitions, and I was being forced to write letter of repentance and thank you letter to the Hong Kong police, and finally I arrived in Toronto.
This month, she was expected to return to Hong Kong as part of her bail conditions, but she says she's in fear for her safety and freedom if she goes back.
So after the consideration of the current political situation in Hong Kong and the high political risk that I might not be able to come back to Canada again if I go back to report, because we had a lot of cases previously in Hong Kong that, people overseas going back to Hong Kong being arrested in the airport and not able to, go overseas again.
So this painting, I did a painting of Agnes because of the inspiration I had of her.
Ricker Choi is a Toronto artist who moved here from Hong Kong 35 years ago. He says Chow is a big reason he began advocating for democracy in Hong Kong.
And I was just very inspired and amazed by how such young teenager will be able to, come up with the courage and bravery and be able to mobilize the whole of Hong Kong to protest against what they call brainwashing education.
Choi says because of his own activism, he too is afraid to return to Hong Kong. He understands Chow's decision to stay in Canada.
Yes, for sure. If she tried to land in Hong Kong, she will be arrested immediately.
Chow says she hopes one day she will be able to return to Hong Kong without fear of persecution.
What I want is actually just to live freely. As a Hong Kong person, Hong Kong is my hometown. I never thought of, not going back to my home anymore. It was really a difficult decision for me.
Without naming her, Hong Kong police strongly condemned Chow's move today. Police said that they urged the woman to immediately turn back before it's too late and not to choose the path of no return. Otherwise, Hong Kong police say she will bear the stigma of fugitive for the rest of her life. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.